Coming up with the idea is one thing. I need to put my business cap on, take away the emotion, and now figure out, should I put my time, money, energy, effort into this? Is there enough of a window of opportunity? What I'm going to put in, am I going to make a return? And that's the beautiful part of validating your idea. Back in the day, we used to hire somebody to be able to do all this research for us, digging and digging through reports and white papers and everything else to be able to figure out how much of an opportunity there is in the market. If I had Axio, it would make it a lot easier for me for sure.
When it comes to product invention, having new ideas is just the beginning, because not all of them will succeed in the market. In this episode, we will cover the essential steps for validating new ideas so you can focus on the right opportunity. Welcome to the Accio Playbook. I am your host, Ziwei Chen, and joining me today is Brian Freed, the Inventor Coach. Brian is a seasoned inventor with 15 patents under his name. And for the past almost 2 decades, he has been guiding inventors from concept to commercialization. Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ziwei.
I'm super excited for this topic today. So just to clarify, our title is Validate Before Create. So we're not talking about the ideation, the prototype, which I'm sure you can talk about for days, but specifically, we are focused on validation. So tell us a little bit more about, why does validation matter?
What I do when I come up with an idea, or somebody calls me up and they say, Brian, I have this amazing invention. I came up with this great idea. It does all these tricks and tips and all kinds of things. And I want to know if it's something that I can make money on. I want to be a gazillionaire. So coming up with the idea is one thing, and then validating it and seeing if enough consumers are going to want it, and figuring out what that window of opportunity is to know that you're going to put your time, money, energy, effort into it, and you're going to get some kind of return. So while I go through that, I also want to know what the competition is. I want to see what's out there.
Yeah, thank you. So what I am hearing is sometimes people get too excited about an idea, and then if they don't validate it, or if they don't do all of these things that you just briefly mentioned, then they might risk either putting something out there that there's already an existing options, or putting something out there that maybe there's no one else, or there's not enough people being interested. And again, as you mentioned, in return, it will be a cost in terms of your resources, which is both the money and the time.
Absolutely. To start with, though, many times when we do come up with this idea, people are calling me and they're saying, Brian, I have this idea. I went to Walmart. I went to Target. I went down the aisles, and oh my gosh, I did not see it out there. This is something that's going to be a home run. Or they go online and they're searching through Google and Yahoo, and they're going through and they're putting in just a basic search, and they're clicking, and they don't really see it. And they're saying, wow, I can't believe this. I'm going to stop right here because it's not out there. So a lot of times people are covering their eyes while they're searching because they don't want to find it. And you're going through the wrong aisles of Walmart because you don't want to find it. So just being true up front to know if it's something that you should work on or not. Should you put your time, money, energy, effort into it, to know that you're going to get some kind of return on it? And just going through those steps of validating and knowing that this is something that other people are going to use. I'm going to use it. I'm going to make money with it. I'm going to go through all the steps to be able to bring it to market. But I need to know, is this something that I should work on? Is this mine? And that's another thing, Ziwei, is just having the ability to know that what you find, is it enough of a difference? So capture them, pull the URLs, take the things that you find in the stores or whatever it is, and then you can really figure out what the issues are. Is this enough of a difference? Am I going to make a difference? And just kind of go through those iterations in your mind to begin with to see if it's something that you can validate.
So it sounds like there are multiple steps that we can take in that process to help them get to the answer, as you have phrased it, as is this worth my time and resources to invest in so I can get in a return? So maybe I wonder if you have any case, either in the past or ongoing, that maybe you can share a little bit about what that validation process could look like.
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about when I came up with my collapsible egg tray. It's called Extra Space. And when I first came up with it, I came home one night from dinner and I had no room left in my fridge. It was packed. And I was trying to put away this bag. And I opened up on the top shelf, I opened up a carton of eggs and there was one egg left in it. And that frustrated me. I'm like, all this space, I need the space, all this space for one egg. So I was looking for a solution. And I went through and I couldn't really find anything out there. And I knew that there was some egg storage containers. I know that sometimes people have on the side of their fridge door, they might have a little space to put some eggs in. But I really wanted to come up and find this solution. So it's interesting because you go through in your mind what you're thinking about and how am I going to start with a carton and be able to shrink it down maybe to just kind of have a storage solution for maybe one or two eggs.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is that what I'm hearing from this story is that you started with a personal struggle. And honestly, in this case, I'm sure you're not the only one because I have a similar struggle. So you start with the problem of like, hey, there's an issue there, and then go about seeing, okay, are there solutions? Can I create a better one? And as
Right.
you mentioned, this happened in the past where you have done a lot of like manual work of searching online, because we have talked about searching about other people's need, searching about competitors and things like that, which I think could be a really good use case for Axio, our AI powered B2B sourcing agent. So what I would love to do is to see if we can use Axio as an AI tool to facilitate this process and maybe speed up accelerated research and give you some ideas. So I have used your example, put them into a case for Axio. So what I would love to do is to share my screen and let's take a look together to see retrospectively, do you think Axio could help you with this process? After you have shared with me about this case, I have created a similar query to reflect it, right? So we can talk about how exactly, as you mentioned, what was the challenge or issue with not having enough space in your fridge. And then I asked Axio, okay, help me assess whether this is an idea worth investing as a business or not, because maybe there's already market items available in the market. Then we should talk about whether that should be a commercially viable option or not. So basically, this is a home screen for Axio. This is the search box where you can input your story, right? It doesn't have to be a short search. Tell Axio what is your thought, what are your needs, what are your questions? And then you can also add images if needed. In this case, you could just take a photo of your fridge, right? And then I'm going to click on search. So what Axio is going to do first is to give you a plan. Basically, it wants to make sure that it understands what you are asking for, what are the tasks related or multiple tasks. And then it's going to give you a plan of like, okay, based on your request, I'm going to do an analysis, I'm going to do some development concept, etc. So that will be the process of how Axio started. And then you can choose to edit anything out or edit anything in, depending on what you specifically need. So I've done this exercise a few times, got a few different reports or results coming out from Axio, and I would love to see how you think about those. So it started with some investment recommendation overview, which means that it took a look at, is there a market gap that is relevant for the opportunities? And then is there a financial potential of, are there enough people going to buy it, things like that? And then maybe a little bit about, this is pretty interesting, technical viability, maybe more later relevant to the stage when you are developing it. And also, as you mentioned earlier, Brian, about is there a competitive advantage? So that's kind of on the high level, the results. And then,
you know what I love about this also is that, and I talk about this quite a bit, when you come up with an idea, you're starting a business, you're going to put your research and development in, you're going to put all the different steps to be able to have the product and then market it. So just like a regular business, a product and coming up with the idea, you're planning and you're preparing for your business. And I love that it did that.
Yeah, I think that's great because again, earlier you mentioned that a lot of times we started with an idea, but there's so many things you have to consider. So instead of waiting or taking the business course, right, to do all of that, just throw ideas into Axio and see what else comes out from Axio about things that you should consider. It's like having an expert by your side. All right, so then moving down the report, what I'm seeing here is about market opportunity analysis with the table for the market size and growth, and also some of the consumer pain points and unmet needs. What do you think about those information?
I thought it was great. Just going through and seeing the different storage container market itself and just where the key drivers are and the growth rate. It really does all the research. I mean, back in the day, we used to hire somebody to be able to do all this research for us, digging and digging through reports and white papers and everything else to be able to figure out how much of an opportunity there is in the market and the growth of the market. Is it worth it to put in, or is it a declining market? But this was very interesting to see that on the storage container side. And then what I really loved was the consumer pain points and unmet needs. This, the severity, the current solutions, the market opportunity, just like taking the pain points, right? The things that annoy me and just putting it into this perspective, not only from mine, but everybody else's. So what I noticed was that you can go on Amazon, you can go on Reddit, you can read people's reviews and feedback on products to say, wow, this one's not doing well. There's something going on, and nobody seems to be meeting that need. And I know a lot of inventors that have done that. But this actually says, let me pull all that data and figure out what the issues are in this egg storage space. And the top one there was wasted refrigerator space. There was some stackable and verticals. The market opportunity was collapsible. And that's what I invented. And I have a patent on, which I'm going to show you at the end of all this. But just seeing the fixed capacity, limited modular options, the expandable design, those are things that really haven't been out there, but just kind of breaking down the severity of it really put things into perspective for me from a consumer perspective, actually.
And the other thing that you mentioned earlier in the conversation is that competitive landscape, right? You also want to make sure that for other people who are trying to solve the same problem, hopefully you are not providing the exact same solution, then there's no differentiation. So what I have done is through another report that I looked through, then there's something that really caught my eyes that I would love to hear your thoughts on. So it has a specific section which is titled The Current Solutions and Competitive Landscape. So I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on seeing something like that. Would that be helpful within your validation process?
Absolutely. I'm saying that when you are figuring out what you're doing, what your competition is doing, and making a decision to invest in this, something like this is amazing. You can go on and you can search and search and search. And in a few seconds, I guess a minute or so, all of a sudden I have all this information at my fingertips that I didn't have to really do. And you pull up and this is accurate. Like there are companies, and these companies that are actually selling different products in the storage solution space. And it shows you what their main features are, what people are appreciating. You're looking at the average rating. So you know that if it's, 4 or above, that these are clearly key features that you may want to consider for your invention or for your product. And then just looking at the competitive advantage, why this is actually getting these good ratings is because people are making it with good quality. They trust the brand. There's some innovation to it that's making it different than the other ones that are out there. It's durable. Are people going to use it? Does it look nice? And the design is in a couple of these. So I thought this was very well done.
And also what I see here is some analysis of patent. So would you say this is also something that you recommend people with new ideas to take a look at and then act upon?
This was very helpful. pulling up the patents actually from the US Patent and Trademark Office, and it looks like even worldwide. And you have a CN, which is a China patent there as well. Being able to pull up the various egg storage solutions that are out there and seeing what it is that it's pulling up from patents, being able to go into these and seeing what's out there. Is yours enough of a difference? You might look at the claims and see if what you're coming up with is kind of covered in someone else's claims to say, you know what, mine is not that much of a difference. Maybe I shouldn't continue with this and I should wait for my next idea. Or is it enough of a difference? And you know what, Zwei? It's hard sometimes for us as inventors. Look, we don't do this every day. We came up with this idea. It might be a side hustle that turns into a full-time job for us. But taking a look at a patent and trying to figure out if it's patentable or not may not necessarily be for us. And there are experts out there. You have patent attorneys, you have patent agents that you can take what you find, even something like this way, to be able to pull these patents and compare what your idea is going to kind of evolve into to what's already existing to see if it's enough of a difference that you can call it your own and you might be able to get a patent on it. That's very important. So patentability opinion is something that I really stress to make sure that yours is enough of a difference.
I appreciate that. And I think that's something super, super important for all our listeners to make sure that you are protecting your rights or you're also respecting an existing right that someone else's own. So far in this validation process, we have talked about researching into the consumers, making sure there's enough people with enough of the pain point, and then assessing what is already out there in the market to make sure that your products or your ideas has enough differentiation, and also validating if it's patentable. Are there existing patents that you need to pay attention to? So after all of these research and analysis, that Axio can support you within just your fingertips, right? And then after that, what are some common options or next steps that you have seen where you recommend our kind of inventors to take from here?
Well, if it's new and you feel like there's a good opportunity and you brought it to a patent attorney or agent to validate that it is something that you should move forward with, then you can start to think about the design and bring it to life. And Axio actually did that for us in this report also. In one of these reports, it was some ideas that started to get me thinking, right? If this was a brand new idea, so you know what, these are some interesting concepts and a good way to kind of collapse. You know, what's the competitive landscape out there? Is there similar products and mine is just not enough of a difference? Maybe I can continue without a patent, but if I do it and it works out well and it sells well, then somebody else can do it. So if it's too similar and I'm kind of making the same thing, as long as I'm not infringing on somebody else's patent, I can make it, and so can Ziwei. So that kind of gets tough. And also, the other thing I think about is the market saturated? Are there too many of these things out there? And are people going to find it? And obviously, with good marketing, sure, hopefully, but how much marketing are you going to put in versus what your return is going to be? So even with mine, that's why I came up with this collapsible egg tray, which whenever you want, I'm happy to reveal. And when I'm selling it, it's not the easiest sometimes, because how do people know that there's even a collapsible egg tray that exists? So I have to spend marketing dollars to be able to let people know that. And before I do all of that, these type of reports, this is what I would do without all this. And it would take me weeks and months. So I might have to hire somebody to do all this. But just going through the flow of all the analysis that came up here really makes something complicated into something simple. And even going through and validating these type of results that came up, it's unbelievable. It has actually, when you click the activities, it shows you the references of where it came from if you wanted to dig a little deeper for each one of these sections.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful in the sense that going through that entire process is something that Axio can support you with, in addition to kind of the specific areas that we have mentioned. And then, so just to quickly sum up for the report. So what we have talked about is the market opportunities. We talked about consumer pain points, and then you mentioned about some inspirations to start with. I'm super curious to see your results at the end right after this, and then some competitive landscape. It also talked a little bit about the technical feasibility, especially when you're going to prototyping and then mass production. Like, can you do that, right? And then exactly manufacturing scalability, maybe some discussion about financial projection and profitability. Going back to this is a business, you want the returns to then grow your next idea, right? And then something a little bit about distribution. You mentioned earlier about marketing, right? How are people going to learn about those? How can you spend those marketing dollars in the right place, which is super important. And then some additional guidance on risk mitigation, market entry. So lots of additional areas, exactly as you have mentioned, in terms of things to consider. But again, going back to our theme today would be, you need to make sure you have validated ideas. So you are not spending your dollars or time in thinking about all of these details before making sure that there is an opportunity for that. So in that case, I'm actually gonna stop sharing, because I'm super excited and curious if you can show us a little bit about the final product that you ended up with.
Well, this is the extra space, the collapsible egg tray. So you put your eggs in, and as you take your eggs out, it goes to this amount of space that you need left in your fridge. So that's why I called it extra space.
And with extra, it's egg.
EGGSTRASPACE. Yeah. So you put your eggs in. It fits small to jumbo size eggs, and it goes on a shelf. And there was a point where I was going to make this into 24 eggs, 2 dozen eggs, because sometimes people don't wait and they get 2 dozen eggs, right? So if you wanted 2, then you could just put 2 of these next to each other, right? You put them next to each other and you have for 2 dozen. But this is a simple way that will save space in the fridge, and it's novel and useful.
Yeah, and I love the name. It's super fun. And again, what's really important is that when you were building that product, you have done your due diligence of making sure people have that similar struggles. Our checklist, right? Are there enough people struggling like with the same pain point, so they're gonna willing to be paid for that? Also making sure you understand what's already out there in the market, so that yours has enough differentiation, and then understand what that patent landscape look like to make sure you are not infringing on someone else's. But also, if you can protect your IP, then you go about getting your patent to make sure that you can continue to earn whatever you deserve as the inventor yourself.
It was interesting also because it showed the different material suggestions. And if it was the material and the space that you kind of need for a dozen eggs, what type of material you should use, how much it might cost, and you have all this information here to be able to make a decision. And of course, you want to dig in and go through some of the activities to show where that information came from. Maybe you want to change it up a little bit because you notice something and you want to dig a little deeper into one of those sections. You want to know maybe about tooling, and just, you know what it is, Wei? When I work with inventors and people with ideas and just trying to figure things out, I always like them to look and see what it's going to be all the way over here, and then come back to where they are and then help them to get to where they want to go. And that's important. And that's what Axio did with this idea, just coming up with that problem, right? Something that annoyed me. We put it in there and it gave all that information to kind of say, should I work on this or not? And the reasons why you should work on it, or maybe you shouldn't work on it. I've been working with Axio on a couple ideas, and sometimes it'll say to me that this is a low return type of opportunity. For this one, it said because a lot of people like storage solutions, people eat eggs, people are looking to save space. Let's talk about investing in this and going through the steps. And it did a really nice job of putting all that into perspective to make a decision to move forward with it. Now, I did this invention before Axio was born, But if I had Axio, it would make it a lot easier for me for sure.
Yeah, I love, one thing I really love about how you phrased it is to take a look at the roadmap all the way towards the end. So it's almost like what Axio did is to take your ideas from like an initial, like vague concept and then build some milestones along the way that, hey, here are all the things that you need to consider without having to invest months into it. And then assess holistically about, okay, is this a path that I want to take down upon? And then along the way, there are all those little decisions or research that Axio can help you as well to accelerate the process and automate all of those research for you. So you can get to the answer faster. And then either you go down this path with more confidence or you go pivot and look for a different path early enough.
You know what? People get very excited when they come up with an idea. So do I. You get kind of this emotional feel, like you get this excitement inside and you're like, you know what? Oh my gosh, I came up with this really good idea. I want to tell everybody about it. But before I do, I got to stop and say, you know what? When I come up with an idea, I want to look at it as a business. I need to put my business cap on, take away the emotion of what it is that came with this idea, and now figure out, should I put my time, money, energy, effort into this? Is there enough of a window of opportunity? And what I'm going to put in, am I going to make a return? If that's what is in your best interest, and are people going to use this for the same reason that you came up with it? And that's the beautiful part of validating your idea, to know if it's something that you should move forward with or not. That's why it's very important for people to take the time and spend it on validation, because you can go to step 7, 8, 9, or 10, and you didn't do this beginning step. And this is the important part. Take your time, make sure that it's something that you should work on or not. Is it something that you can call your own, and then make a decision to move forward?
That is well said. And I think for all of our listeners, hopefully you can copy paste what exactly Brian just mentioned and apply it to your current or your next idea. And then in this process, using Axio as your companion to support you along the way.
So, Ziwei, as an inventor, I'm always coming up with ideas. People are coming up with ideas. And we're going to go to Axio and put in our problem, something that might annoy us, maybe this new invention that we have. How do we know that we're protected using the Axio?
Yeah, Brian, I think that's a very good question, a very important one. So from our perspective, what we can confidently say as a protection for all of our users' privacy is that any information that you input to the Axio platform, especially the prompt, right? All of your queries and your prompt will not be shared with any other third parties. However, obviously on the Axio platform, you do have the option to chat with third-party suppliers. So what we definitely recommend is that when you are communicating your ideas, not to Axio as a platform, but to other third parties through Axio, right? And then in this process, you do need to be careful to protect all of your ideas. So for example, as you mentioned earlier in our conversation, lots of times you can establish your NDA agreement, right, in advance before speaking with the suppliers, or at least be careful in an initial phase. So again, just to wrap up, for any information you provided to Axio as the platform, especially the prompts, are protected, that we're not going to share with any other third parties. However, if you're speaking with third parties through Axio or through any other platform, then it's highly recommended for you to protect those your rights by initiating your IP, your copyright, and your NDAs.
So I can use Axio platform to get my idea in order, think about things, maybe iterate, kind of look at the plan, and then work on it, work on my design, work on my prototyping, maybe get patent protection, file a provisional patent application, which will give us the right for 1 year to say that we're patent pending while we're exploring the market. Or maybe you file a design patent or non-provisional, which is otherwise known as a utility patent. This way, when we do go to those third-party companies or people that are going to be helping us, we are protected. So we'll be patent pending. And that's kind of the way that I would feel more comfortable talking after the Axio platform.
100%. And I love the call out you mentioned there as the patent pending, because I know a lot of our audiences might be overwhelmed or intimidated that, oh, I need to go through the whole process. But as you mentioned, even if the patent pending, it's already a protection for yourself and gives you the time to continue with the rest of the process.
Absolutely. That's my opinion. Obviously, you do what you feel most comfortable with, but that's the reason why we filed patent pending. And you're not going to share what you filed with anybody. So you do have that kind of tucked away and be able to work on it and have peace of mind.
Yeah, well, that's a great final question to kind of address some of our users' consideration. And just to wrap up this session, so today we focus specifically on validating your ideas. So before you get too excited, make sure that you can do the research about the audience, about your consumers, about the existing solutions, and about the market in terms of the patent availability and anything else that you should think about along the way. And in this process, you can use Axio as your research assistant to automate the entire process so you can get to the answers faster, while also using Axio to get a roadmap for you on all the additional things that you need to think about as put your business hat on, right? To make sure you're considering this idea not just as a personal opportunity, but as a business commercial opportunity as well. So thank you so much, Brian, for your information, for sharing your story. And I hope all of our audiences can succeed in their next invention.
Thank you. Keep moving your ideas forward.